where I share the slides. So here we are. I am on YouTube and on Instagram. I don't know if I should put this desk lower or higher. Don't knock over anything. Okay, let's kind of. And last time it kind of looked like I was only looking at YouTube, so I was like, let me. I mean, it looked like it was only looking. Yeah, it looks like it was only looking at YouTube. So let me try to put this underneath here, so it kind of looks like I'm looking at both. But even though I don't know how much lower I can put this. Nope, that's it. So anyway, put my cup over here. Um, let's get into it. When I say today, guys, I was exhausted. I was like, am I going to do this today? Am I going to do this today? But I was like, let's just do it. So here I am. Now, Tuesdays are my day that I do content. I had vendor meetings today. But you know what? Someone pointed out something that's like, I'm getting to do what I love. So I don't want anyone to ever feel like I'm too busy for them or I have too much going on to, for them to be my client because I never want anyone to feel that way. So I won't talk about how busy today was, but I will tell y'all that your girl is tired. But here I am. So anyway, let's get to the slides. And again, if you want to see the slides, you can either catch the replay or you can hop over to YouTube. But let me share my screen. I feel like I'm getting better at this, like sharing my screen. And tonight, hopefully I get a chance. I want to actually, because we're talking about tonight, step 3 is under contract. So I don't know if I said that. So step 3 is under contract. What do you do once you found the one? It's very exciting, right? So you've been searching, you know exactly what you want, and you say, hey, Tiffany, this is the one. It has everything I've ever wanted. It's time to put in an offer. So I named this under contract. What do you do? What did I say? You finally found the one, or you found your dream house. Now what? Or you found your dream investment property. Now what? You know? So, okay, let me go to these good old slides. What does it say? Step 1. Okay. Not this. Is this one? Let's share these. Okay, and again, you guys can't see them on Facebook, but on YouTube, I'm sharing the slides, and you can always get the slides on the replay. So, step 3, under contract, right? So, you found your dream house, like I said. Now, let's negotiate. And those are one of my favorite parts. Put in an offer. Yes. Hi. One of my favorite people just joined. I'm so happy about that. Yes, it is time to put in an offer. So, really quickly, the first 2 steps. Number 1, which is so important, and obviously so tedious, is the financial part, right? So, gathering your financial documents. There are so many different loan products you can use for either, a single family home, an investment property, land. Like there are so many different products you can use. I think we talked about conventional, FHA, DSCR loans, um, a million different products that you can use to finance a home, unless you're coming with cash, which is great too. But most people in 2026 are not coming fully with cash. So we want to talk to a professional lender first to see how we can help you finance your purchase. So, and then sourcing your down payment is going to be gift funds. Are you getting a grant from the city? Are you using investment funds? So, all those things, step 1 is preparing for the cost of your home. Step 2, the home search, right? So, this is the exciting part that everybody always wants to do, right? Find me my home, find me my investment property, find me my next condo. And this is where we talk about needs versus wants and actually searching on the back end what schools you want your kids to go to. All of that is doable. What's the square footage? Do you need a pool? Do you need a front patio? I just had someone tell me that. I went on a showing actually on Monday, yesterday, because I was not off for MLK Day. And she said, oh, I need a little porch patio in the front of my next house, and I need to have 24-foot ceilings. These were needs, not one. She needs 2 bedrooms on the first floor and 3 bedrooms upstairs. So anyway, that's where the home search. So we're previewing properties online first, then we're scheduling showings of our favorite, we're finding your match, and next we're putting in the offer. So when you see the thing, oh, it's under contract, I feel like that is such a simple term for very much like a longer process than just, oh, it's under contract. Like someone had to write an 11-page offer, depending on the contract they use. If they're using the new home contract, are they using the 1-to-4 contract, are they using the unimproved land contract? Like, depending on the contract you're using, you had to read 11, 12, 13 pages. So, but the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to negotiate our offer, right? So you see a house and it's listed price. Is it worth that listed price? And so that's where one of my favorite things come in. We're not just going to just offer the listing price without doing more research, right? So I start to research. I think we talked about this a little bit last week. Research on the area, research about what has sold in the area recently, research about what other people paid, right? Research about if this is an investment property, what are the rent in that area? Because if you're buying a home, you want to know what is it going to rent for if it's just for investment. So I'm looking up all these different things for you before we actually put in the offer, because you need to have the full financial picture, whether you're living in the home or investing in the home. Like I said, you need to know, okay, I'm purchasing this home for X, Y, and Z thousand. I need to know what is it actually going to rent for. Is the rent that the area is renting for going to actually cover the mortgage that you're taking out, right? So that's one of the first things I like to do before we negotiate an offer before I put in an offer, is actually look at the area and look at what that home is actually valued at. So number 2, negotiate the terms of your offer. So let's say we say, okay, we're going to offer this price because that's what matches the market, after we looked at our 6 sold comps and our 3 pending comps and what's active in the area based on square footage. Oh yeah, we did talk about this last time. So once we figure that out, we're going to say, okay, that's not the only thing we can negotiate. We can negotiate appliances. Is a resale home, it's 1-to-4 contract. Are they going to leave the refrigerator, the washing machine, the microwave, the dryer? Like, what are the things that you want to put in that offer, right? Another thing that we can negotiate is closing costs. So you say, hey, the home is listed for XYZ amount, but I want to have to bring less to the table, right? In cash, because usually you bring your down payment and you bring your closing costs, which, next time I'm going to write that down, because next time I'll pull up the closing disclosure. And I didn't prepare that this time. I did prepare a contract for us, but I'll pull up the closing disclosure to actually show you the line items of costs that people pay for when they say closing costs are covered. And it can be, I think, let me see, for a house that was $345,000, I believe her closing costs originally were around like $16,000 to $19,000. So that's when I go to work, because she told me, hey, I'm not bringing $19,000 to the table. So I'm like, okay, so let me work with, at this time it was a builder, it wasn't a resale home. So let me work with a builder to see how much closing costs they can bring to the table for my client. So that's another term that we need to negotiate. Now I know it looks like I'm just flipping through these pages, but I need to find my notes page. Okay, I'll put it right here. So I'm going to put closing disclosure. I'll be able to show that to you guys. Kind of like a mock-up of what it looks like for my next slide. Okay, so let's see. Other terms we can negotiate is how long we're going to need to do our due diligence. So, they say if you're on the sell side, obviously you want the due diligence period to be as short as possible, 3 days, But if you're on the buy side, you want 7 to 10 days, and that's to get your survey, that's to get your inspection. And I'll bring an inspection report when we talk about that. Actually, next week we're going to talk about inspection. An inspection report can be 25 pages, right? and it tells you from the rooted to the tooted, like we say in the South. It tells you everything about that house. It tells you your top five, your HVAC, your roof, your foundation, the plumbing, electrical. Tells you everything that's going on in the house, the guts of the house, not just how pretty they made that wallpaper, because that's cosmetics that could easily be changed. But if you have to change electrical in a house, well, that's a different price now, right? So we talk a little bit about accepting the contract and sign, schedule the home inspection, and deposit the earnest money, and then completing your loan application. So I feel like I went off on a tangent there, but this is an exciting part, right? Because I really get to go to work for you, right? You really get to see the value add that I bring to the table when it comes to being your real estate advisor. So, looking at the purchase price, we kind of talked about this based on the market value, comparables, and your budget. Contingencies, so your inspection, your appraisal, which is ordered by your lender, and appraisal is basically saying, is this home worth the price that we offered? And if not, your lender is going to say, well, this is not a great investment of our money, right? Because, and by our money, the bank's money, because they want to be able to get a return on their investment. So the loan to value ratio, and then financing, which we talked about, and the sale of a current home. Now, I have a client like this currently that she wants to purchase a new home, but she needs to sell her previous home that she. So with that, we write that there's a contract, there's an addendum that we can write in. And I didn't bring my paper contracts, but I'm glad I didn't because you can't really see them. But there is a way that you can write that in the contract, like, hey, we're offering you, let's just use the median home price, which right now is like 335 in Houston. In Houston, okay, don't at me, tell us 335. That's so cheap. There's people on this live from everywhere, okay? 335 is the median home price in Houston. So let's say we write a offer for 335, but we're writing in there contingent on us selling the home that we own, right? So that means they have to wait on us to sell our home. And then that's when that offer will become valid. So there's not tons, but there are a couple of contingencies that we can write in. We can have addendum to third party financing. So, like, if our financing falls through, we have options there to get our earnest money back. We can also write in our closing date. The lender might say, hey, we can close in 2 weeks. Some lenders do say that. I've had someone come with a pre-approval and say it's 14 days. I can close. Great. Well, some people want longer, right? Some people want 30 to 45 days, and that's even people who don't have a house to sell. They might be gathering the rest of their down payment funds. They might be, closing out the school year. There's a ton of different reasons. So all of that is written in the contract. Written in the initial offer. And then we kind of talked about this a little bit, inclusions, right? So what do you want included? We talked about appliances, fixtures. So fixtures, for example, if it's not a TV bracket, because TV bracket are attached. If it's not attached to the wall or the home, then you have to say if you want it, and the seller needs to say if they're taking it. So I feel like can get a little sticky, and I've seen it get a little sticky. Like, I'm gonna give y'all an example that I actually experienced. We were looking at a home, right? And I was working with the buyer. And I always like to read through the attachments before we go on a showing, so that the attachments on a MLS that realtors can see can be the seller's disclosure. It can be non-realty items, which what we're talking right now is anything that's not attached. It can be offer instructions, how the title company they want to use, things of that nature, right? So I always like to just thumb through that to see what's going on there. Is the roof 116 years old? We don't need to go see it for a first-time home buyer who wants to replace the roof. Anyway, so I always thumb through that, and there was a laundry list of non-realty items that they were taking with them. So I started reading through it, and I was like, okay, I can see you're taking that. They were taking, and what turned me off, and I think what turned my client off as well, they were taking every single flower pot in the front of the house and the back. So I was like, let me pull up the pictures because they listed all these different types of flowers. I'm not a horticulturist. I don't know about that. So I was like, let me see, let me go look back at the photos. Okay, so basically once they finished taking all those flowers, there was like the beautification of the landscaping would have been completely gone. And my client was like, they're gonna have to leave at least one. I'm like, okay, babes, we can negotiate it, but I'm telling you up front what this paper right here is saying is that they're not leaving any of the planters, nothing, no plants, no flowers, and the yard was immaculate. It was beautiful. But basically, they're going to pull all that up. And I said, hey, another thing that we need to think about is when they pull all that up, what happens to that concrete right there? What happens to that grass right there? There's going to be a hole in the grass, and that concrete is going to need to be power washed. So that's all something I would want to write in the contract, want to write in the offer. Like, who wants to deal with that afterwards, right? So you just have to think about that. Let me go to the next slide because y'all know I could be long winded. So let's see, accepting the contract. So after we write every single thing we want in there, after we pull all of our comps, but let me bring this up really quick. Let's see. I went to Zip Forms and let me see if I can share with y'all on YouTube. So let me see. Let me stop sharing that. And then I want to share. You guys are not on YouTube, you're on Facebook. So I don't really know how to share on Facebook. I don't think you can. But on YouTube, you can share. So I'm going to share a blank. It doesn't have anybody's information in it, but it's the 1 to 4 residential contract. So basically, this is used for what it says 1 to 4 family residential contract, right? So 1 to 4 units is not used for, excuse me, 1 to 4 homes. It is not used for condominium transactions, right? So, and it's for resale. So if you're saying, oh, well, I only want to buy new construction, I've seen it one of two ways: new home contract, which I have filled out for clients as well, or the builder. Who do I want to give a shout out to? David Weekly, for example. I've closed with them and they treated me very good. So David Weekly has their own separate contract that their builder uses. So it could be different. But if you're like some people, you're like, no, I'm buying a resale home. It's not going to be new construction. Great. This contract is what I'm going to use. So basically, it is 11 pages, like I talked about, and it has multiple sections that if y'all ever say, oh, I'm in a contract class or I'm in a 1 to 4 class, that's because there are different ways that you can write this contract. And I will shout out to Tequila Adolf at my brokerage. I've taken her contract class 2 times and counting because every time she teaches it, I would like to attend. And basically, she is a real estate vet who now, serves her community by teaching other agents. And she has taught me, I think, 8 or 9 ways. I haven't written on my little notes on the contract. I literally carry around a contract sometimes. I don't have it in my bag today, but my bag was getting heavy, y'all. But anyway, I took the contracts out. But I need to figure out which ones I'm gonna put back in my bag because I carry it around. And every time I go to that class, I make a little tally. So now I've taken the class 4 times, but I've taken it with tequila twice. I make a little tally and I always make little notes because there are 8 ways to get your buyer out of a contract if they change their mind for whatever reason. Okay, because my fiduciary is to my buyer if I'm a buyer's agent. So anyway, so let's go through this contract. So basically, you start with the parties of the contract. So who's buying the house and who's selling the house. Then you go to the property. You don't just put the address, but you do put the address, but you need the lot and block. You need the city and the county, so that's great. And then it kind of goes through improvements of the house, and this kind of what we were talking about: permanently installed and built-in items, right? Accessories, and then exclusions. So I think I was saying non-realty items, but that exclusions list. Okay, so we have to pay particular attention to that. Sales price, so it talks about how much we're offering, what portion of that will be financed, what portion of that will be an assumable loan, like say if you're just assuming someone else's loan, or what portion of that would be third party financing. Will there be any leases? Like I have heard, I haven't done it, but some sellers are willing to Some sellers need to lease the property. So even though you say, oh, I'm going to close in 30 days, they say, oh, but I can't move for another 3 months. Well, those two numbers don't add up. So what they would need to do would be to do a lease. And then we have to fill out an addendum. Not something I particularly recommend. I met this man because I talked to everybody about real estate. So I was getting I don't know if I was getting my oil changed or I was getting something checked, but at Jiffy Lube. So we were the only ones sitting in the lobby, and he just looked so bored and like he wanted to talk to me about real estate. So I was like, hey, how are you? I saw he had on his little scrubs. So I was like, oh, you work in the medical district? So you wear scrubs. And he was like, oh, yeah, he was so excited about his job. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, you're from Houston? And so basically we got all the way down that rabbit hole about basically, do you need help buying and selling a home? And so he was telling me, oh man, I would love for you to be my realtor, but I just bought a home. I was like, oh my gosh, congratulations. How'd it go? Because the conversation just doesn't stop for me anyway. When you told me you bought a home, tell me more. So he was telling me all about the home, where he bought it, what his options were. I mean, he was just spilling the beans. I was like, okay, you did their big one, whatever. And so basically, he ended up telling me, because I was just giving him all his props. I'm like, you did that? It didn't seem like you were stressed. And he was like, let me tell you about this lease back that we did. I said, excuse me, what? He said, well, the sellers needed more time in the house. And so I did a lease back. I said, okay, how did that go? And he said, not good, not good. By the time I moved in the house, there were things have changed from the inspection, and there was this huge leak that no one said anything about. And basically, it was a mess for him. But remember, they had done the inspection 3 months, whatever months prior, and that hadn't leaked. And so then the sellers moved down with their money and went about their merry way. And I said, well, what about the deposit? He was like, nope, my agent didn't ask the sellers for a deposit. Now, everywhere you live, you have to, unless you live with your mama and them, you have to give a deposit for rent. And the agent didn't ask for a deposit. And I said, well, what about the rent? At least you made some rent money. He was like, no, they did like $100. I said, oh, $100 a day? He said, no, $100 for like the whole lease back. So we just want to be mindful of things like the lease back. Like, obviously, we want our offer to be favorable. And we'll talk about that in a second, like a multiple offer situation and how to be strategic. But also, like, we have to make it make sense for you, the buyer, right? Because that sounded to me like a horror story. Now, how he works. I think he was a anesthesiologist, neurologist, something that makes money, right? So he was like, it's okay, I got it fixed and I'm happy now. You see, it's okay, I got it fixed means you had to come out of pocket, but you had it in your pocket to come out of it. So for him, it was water underneath the bridge, quite literally. But for others, it may be a bigger situation. And also, that's what we could talk about home warranty as well. Okay, so anyway, moving on to the next thing. Earnest money. You see that on there. Termination options. You can put how many days. Seller grants buyer the unrestricted right to terminate the contract by giving notice of termination to the seller within blank days after the effective date of the contract option period. Excuse me. Title policy and who will be furnishing that. Excuse me. Who will be paying for it, seller or buyer? And it's seller if I'm on the buy side. And we're only, guys, all the things I just routed off, we're only on page 3. Like, this contract is in-depth. Survey, obviously everyone needs to get a new survey. I don't want to see the old survey. And honestly, now they're copyrighted, so you're not even really supposed to be using the old survey. Do you have an HOA? Is it in a POA? And what do those documents look like? What are the fees? So has that been presented to your buyer? I mean, I'm skipping over so many things. I'm basically just running through the blanks, but there are things that you just need to read that have no blanks. So This is all about going under contract, and this is the offer. So it's not just an easy feat, right? Um, Required notices. Is it in a mud district? And what is that mud district? And what that mud district have going on? That's another thing we're supposed to know. Property conditions. So you make sure you have access to inspections, utilities. Um, Seller's disclosure. If the resale home, the seller was actually living in there, they have to disclose if they know the age of well, not if they know the age of the roof. They have to disclose if they know how many AC units are in it. They have to disclose if they know there's issues, right? So have you received that, and have you had, have we reviewed it? How do you accept the property as is, or the buyer accept the property as is, provided seller as seller shall complete, and you write in what they should complete. So professional cleaning, not cleaning. I don't know how you clean. Um, Residential service contracts. So then you get to put the closing date that we talked about. Not my light going out. Rude. Guys, it literally went out. I look so cute. They're like, but I still look cute without the light. But let's see what else. Settlement and other expenses. So for example, settlement under other expenses 12A, 1A, and B talk about how I'm compensated, which we will talk about at your buyer consultation. I'm compensated, off of percentage of the sales price. So based on that sales price, that same sales price I'm helping you negotiate down, I get paid off of. So I just bring this up really quickly because I saw Ricky Caruth post this. He said that same agent who you said, well, I don't want to pay or makes too much money, just negotiated $40,000 off that house plus your own closing costs, and you don't want to give them 3%. But they sat there and negotiated less on the sales price. And remember, agents get paid on the sales price. So I'm basically helping you cut my cut my fee by helping you. So I think that's something that we need to keep in mind when this rhetoric of agents get paid too much, or oh, I don't want to pay the full whatever fee, because commissions are negotiable. So whatever fee that agents say their services is worth, you have to think about, okay, is this person helping me negotiate down the price? Is this person looking at comps in the area saying, oh, actually that house is overpriced, we're going to come in here? Well, they're literally doing you a service and doing themselves not a service by saying like, hey, I'm going to do this for you, but obviously it takes money off of my my pay at the end of the day because it's a percentage. So anyway, moving on from there. So that's there. And then again, people, we're only on page 7. So anyway, this contract goes all the way through and has all the information that you could ever think of. And this is something that I also go over in my buyer consultation. So let me go back to my slides and make sure I didn't miss anything there. So now we go to accepting the contract. So accepting the contract, what happens next? So once I send all that information over to the agent and you sign it, well, first of all, you sign it, you review it, we review it together, you sign it. I'm actually going to start doing like review videos with my clients, so that'd be really cute. But so you can go through line by line, page by page, and make sure you understand everything. And once you understand everything, you sign it and we send it over to, the seller and their agent. I send it to the agent. Their agent shares it with their client, which is the seller. So basically, what makes this officially under contract is when both parties agree to the terms and sign the contract. So the seller takes the property off the market while we complete our due diligence and obviously secure financing. I said, Tiffany, I thought that's what pre-approval was. No, it's pre-approval. Okay, now the checks and balances begin again. Are you still employed? Do you have enough money to close? What that would look like, what the time frame exactly is, right? So you're protected by contingencies during this period. Let me make sure I'm sharing on YouTube still. No, I'm not. So let me make sure I share. Okay. So next, earnest money. Earnest money is something that it could be 1%. Typically, I see it's 1%. 1% of the sales price, and basically it's showing the seller that you're serious about this purchase, right? So they're just giving, and it's held in escrow, and it's applied to your down payment or your closing costs at closing. So you're basically saying, hey, I'm going to do my inspection. We're going to do our appraisal. We're going to do the survey. We're going to do all these things to make sure the house is what you said it was. But at the same time, I understand you're taking off the market. So here's some dollars so you can know that I'm serious, right? Because when you put your money where your mouth is, people believe you. So protected by your contingencies. If you back out for a valid reason covered under the contract, you do get that earnest money back. So if something comes back that it wasn't what it was, or we didn't get some information in time, like I told you, those 8 ways to get out of a contract, any of those things come back that we don't like the way it looks, or we get wind of something that we don't like the way it is, we say, hey, we're still during the option period, and which we talked about a little bit last time about additional fees. And then we can say, hey, we're good, we can go our separate ways, right? Another thing I learned the other day was like you need to be more like agents and clients need to be disciplined about sending withdrawal of offer. So that is actually in a different form that we would send like, hey, I know I sent this to you, but I'm good. We're withdrawing our offer. So then scheduling our home inspection, like I said, we will go through an inspection report in another step. But basically, as soon as we put an offer, as soon as I even know that we're putting an offer, and like we started looking at the inspection schedule. Now I always give people 3 vendors, but we have to start looking at, can we get inspected during that time period, or what kind of time we need. Professional inspection, and then attend the inspection. I like to attend inspections. Y'all have seen on my social media that I go there and I ask the inspector a million questions. And then we review the report. When they give me a report, it's usually 24 to 48 hours. I go over that thing. And some inspections are really great where they have like in green, like this is good, or they have in red, like this needs to be fixed. So we go over that thing and then we make a list to that seller or that builder and say, hey, these are things we would like to be fixed. What can you do? Okay. So next, completing the loan application. So this is also working with your lender, but I'll be right there with you. And at this time, we'll be able to see, okay, the time frame specified in your contract. You'll complete your full loan application. So you'll verify your financial information, you'll order the appraisal to make sure the loan to value of the house makes sense, and you'll process your loan for final approval. So that is your under contract guide, right? So you find your dream home, and from the time you find your dream home to the time you're actually under contract, those are all the things that are in the middle, right? So negotiating the price, making sure your loan details are approved, doing our due diligence with like inspections, and actually writing up the contract. So that is what real estate agents really, really earn the bulk of our money, because it's like we're now at a point where we are your fiduciary and we're negotiating on your behalf to make sure that you're not only getting the best deal, like the best price, but you're getting the best product for the money that you're getting, right? So we're making sure everything in that house is what it says it is, right? So next week, we will be talking about step number 4. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to DM me. I am 37 minutes in, and guys, I have talked myself. I need a coffee, and this is water. So anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye. Bye, YouTube.